This is TWiT.
Here's a second story that we may want to unpack, and it's one that ran in the New York Times yesterday, and then I wrote a blog post about it this morning, which has to do with QR codes. It's funny with QR codes. 10 years ago, a good friend of mine, who's an author of some code that all of us are using, one way or another, he called QR codes robot barf, and it's a line that caught on for a long time. It's just robot barf, but it's something that I think Toyota or a contractor for Toyota invented, and it was put essentially in the public domain, and now it's universally employed. You just see QR codes everywhere, but most commonly lately is in restaurants. It seems like maybe a third of the restaurants have gone to, since we were allowed out of our homes and can go to restaurants now, in much of the world, they publish the menu in a little QR code. Even in the fancy restaurants, they're in this little tiny QR code that's on the table there, and everybody scans it and they look at it. Well, then it turns out you could be tracked, and it's being used to track you, and where QR codes really could have been a wonderful way to start shaking hands with people, or for us to shake hands with a company. Like you go to a restaurant and you might want to suggest something to the chef later, saying, that was really good. This other thing wasn't so great. You might try a different dressing on this salad, or, the olives were kind of stale, whatever it was. But you can have a constructive relationship with an establishment through a QR code handshake, which I've seen nobody try anywhere. But instead, of course, the restaurant makes a little bit of money by contracting with some company that then tracks you because you've clicked on this QR code, or your phone has acquired a tracker somehow through scanning the QR code. And I don't know whose responsibility is that. I mean, most of us are getting our phones from exactly two places, Apple or Google. If Kyle Rankin was on this call, he's an old colleague of Katherine's and mine, and he's been on a number of our shows. But he's with the Purism phone. But is it up to them? Who's this up to? How do we stop this, short of regulation, which is like the last thing I want to use?
Well, so let's think about what a QR code, when we use it this way, what is a QR code really? It's essentially a hyperlink in physical form, right? And so it's not a unique problem. It's the same problem that we have everywhere on the web. If tracking is a problem, then, every time you go to a different link, the technology lets somebody track you. It's just the same thing, but now we have a physical representation of it. And I kind of think it's weird to refer to the QR codes as the boogeyman here. But at the same time, I understand why tracking can be a problem. There is an open source solution to this, a couple of them, actually. One is in both of the major browsers, there's an option to open a link in an incognito tab. And that, for the most part, kills tracking. Now, I don't know for sure that that's an option when you go to scan a QR code. I think it could be pretty easily. I just don't know if there's a simple button to do that. That seems like that would be a great idea. But then Mozilla with Firefox is going a step further with this. They're essentially trying to kill tracking altogether, something that Mozilla is calling total cookie protection. And that is essentially a sandbox for your cookies per domain. And so the way most tracking works these days is it's something like you have a Facebook account, which, by the way, even if you don't have a Facebook account, you have a Facebook account. Facebook made one for you. Every website that you go to that has a Facebook button on it, well, when your browser loads that button, it sends a message back to Facebook that says, hey, this person that I'd recognize because of this cookie just visited this website. So Facebook can track wherever you go on the web. Mozilla basically said, we're kind of tired of that. We're going to try to fix that. And so they are now saying all of these cookies that get used to track you, they only work on, twit.tv. And so now Facebook can see, oh, there's somebody at twit.tv. But when you then go over to amazon.com and there's a Facebook button there, there's no correlation between those two if you use Firefox and total cookie protection. So there are solutions for this coming in the pipeline, and they are happening in open source projects. Maybe not fast enough, but it's coming. It's being worked on.